the way we talk in libraries needs to change. Instead of librarians thinking or saying, I think the website should be blue because it's a great color or whatever. The whole language needs to change and say our users would like or our users prefer, et cetera, et cetera. Sounds like you're advocating for that and trying to get everyone on board. Hold on, there's someone, yeah, you, Purple, you had something to say about that.
Oh, no, something else.
Okay.
Feel free to continue this at length.
Okay.
I'm David from South Carolina State Library, and I would see that as an opportunity to collaborate with the wine shop. You know, can we go to discussion here 1 month, over here 1 month, or, and you know, all the library folks like Sacramento, they do their programs on coasters, and then they take them to bars and pubs, and they just have like overwhelming response from some programs. People go there anyways.
Yes, maybe the library can add some value to the program in the wine store and the restaurant.
Yeah, supplying with books or something.
Or have like lists of these are real lives or something.
Yes, and then the library can get it can be a co-branded program. That's good.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about doing less and also design those two elements put together. I'm from the Library of Michigan, the State Library of Michigan, and I'm a law librarian there. And that is as dull as the book can be, and I really love it. I mean, there is nothing smoking hot about that, but in actuality, I just got an email this morning saying our new library brochures, flyers are in. And I can promise you that those new brochures were designed by one of my coworkers, unhappily so, and I love every last one of them, but they are librarians and not designers. And it's like, what the hell are we doing designing your own brochures? That's one question. It's like, you know, I got plenty to do. I don't need to be thinking what shade goes with purple, you know, on this little diagram and how to use the software. But two is, it's going to be insipid. It's going to be dull. It's going to make me cringe when I see it. And my question is, at what point can you just say, please, let's just hire a designer and make it smoking hot? Because, you know, by the time they get to me, they're already really happy they've met me, or my clients, right? But we've got to convince them to find me, if that makes sense. And when can you just start paying a professional to make it good?
I mean, it's never too soon if the library has the money. That's the big issue, right?
Yeah, but at what point are you know, it's like not investing in continuing education. At what point, you know, are you shooting yourself in the foot by not investing in it?
Mm-hmm.
And what language do you use? Oh, and you said case studies from the commercial world. Are there low-cost case studies that people can access with regard to, like, okay, they found this work and this didn't work, but somebody had to pay for those case studies. They're kind of a open source thing for people to look at, or?
Oh, as far as finding case studies?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we have a number of different topics here.
Yeah.
Investing in skill development versus outsourcing is fine work, and case study, finding case studies. I don't have a great resource for finding case studies aside from reading design blogs and books. And that's what I do. I think there's plenty of stuff there to find case studies. Did you have something that?
This was about like the design,
Yeah.
when you pass it off to a designer. I have worked at a nonprofit that we had a graphic design company we had contracted with, and I worked at my library where we've used a freelance graphic designer who's really, really cheap. But still a lot of design had to come from in-house because we just don't have a lot of budget. But any good designer will help you come up with a palette of colors, will help you come up with the fonts. They won't just, if you work with them in the right way, and the right designer will help prepare you to do some in-house stuff. So you're not focusing on like 6 colors of purple and yellow in your ad, which might not be the most professional ad. It might look like a 4-year-old, but you see, I mean, I see a lot of ads sometimes that look like maybe a 4-year-old made them. And a designer doesn't just do their one job. You can ask them, you know, can you come up with a color palette and a font set for us? we don't have that eye, but we need to be budget friendly and do that in-house. And I think that's a good compromise. We're still looking professional, but working with another.
I don't know if I want to look professional anymore. I mean, because it so translates into insipid and dull and.
I think professional can be
Yeah.
neat and well designed. It doesn't have to be legal looking. Professional just looks like somebody put thought into it. It can still be fun and interesting, and I think good design is that more than, professional good design is more interesting than boring.
Yes, I think what you're highlighting is like Crayola.com is professional design, but it looks like it's for kids, or it is for kids.
And you have a great local resource. Michigan State's up the road. You could get an internship from Kresge Art.
There's
And
limits, see, that's the problem, by the time you add up all the limits, we're pretty locked in. That's been hoo-hooed, thought out, hoo-hooed, and nixed already. The internship, besides, I don't language.
well, then do Ann Arbor. I don't care. You can do it
But
online. So, I mean,
what I'm saying is, that sounds like a great idea, but in
Right.
reality, there's enough limitations on internships and stuff
Well,
like that.
they also do, students will do cheap graphic design. That's what you can get.
not even an internship. You could do a practicum. It could be
Yeah.
something that they can use and you don't pay them.
Or you
Really.
can pay them. If you have a couple $100s, it doesn't cost much to get some design from somebody just out of school.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go to your
sure.
local high schools, that's what we do. We use our graphic arts teacher and her very best students, and then we give $25 Amazon cards.
And it builds a portfolio. They're always looking for experience.
I think what we're really talking here is the levels of bureaucracy that must be, challenged, overcome.
Right.
I have a question, totally different. What do you think of the large screen monitors for signage in libraries? How do you think they work? Do they work well? Is it an easy kind of way to do things, or is it noise?
I've seen them work really well in some libraries. One in particular that I can think of is the Darien Public Library in Connecticut. Does a great job with their digital signage. I've also seen the library tack up a LCD monitor and just have a rotating PowerPoint that's pretty boring. So I think it has potential, but it depends on implementation.
So what is a good implementation then? So tell us about Darien's implementation.
Yeah, well, they have spent time designing all the different, it doesn't look just like a slide deck rotating. There's attractive information, et cetera. That's diffused throughout the building, so there's reinforcement. There's one corner, people are expected to just stare at it.
So they have multiple
Mhm.
LCDs.
And that helps, for sure.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I don't know the name. My name is Portia. I'm from Chicago. Currently. Okay. So, and my question is in regards to the deconstruction, if you will, of the reference text. Could you expound upon that and how you see that? And the roving library and how that kind of ties in there. But if you're, and I'm throwing a lot at you,
No, that's fine.
forgive me for that. But if you do not have like the technology, is your way to do it with and without the technology? And how does that look? To do it?
So my big problem with reference desk, like I said, is it sets up an expectation that the patron will approach the librarian. So this is librarians being passive, and it's a very diametrically opposed transaction, and the information is expected to kind of just come from this magic source behind the desk, and it's not collaborative. It doesn't engage users. So I have seen this work with technology, and in particular mobile devices, and without technology. It's easy for librarians to, without access to technology, to walk around the stacks, rope people in, help them there if they can, but if not, just walk them over to a terminal. I think patrons are, especially in universities and larger high school libraries, are less likely to approach a reference desk because they might have their computer, their phone, their drink, their notebook. They have a whole setup, a workstation. I'm expecting them to get up and leave all that, especially if it's valuable equipment, is a big expectation. So I've seen in libraries, librarians walk around with iPads and actually iPhones as well, and do database searches right then and there, and work with people at the point of need, maybe in the part of the collection where they are, so they're using electronic resources, print resources, etc. So tablet devices have really helped that as well. Does that answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Told her to buy a phone and then do tax write off of it.
Perfect.
You're using the core.
Figure it out.
I've got something helpful.
No.
Well, I'm not sure exactly how to word this, but we talk about technology in libraries and the comic on how awful it is to use Overdrive. But we give a pass to other technologies. For example, I logged on to iTunes the other day and had 68 updates, and it took me 2 days to update everything. So I didn't log on forever. And I didn't throw my iPhone against the wall and write a comic. I was like, I'm a slave to Apple. So I guess what I'm asking is, in libraries, how can we make ourselves so needed that they'll say, okay, this tech's not working right now, but it's not because the library's god awful and I hate the library. It's because technology is technology. I love my iPhone and hate iTunes. So how do we kind of give ourselves a pass for some of those things, because technology is going to break. It's not going to work. You're going to have 10 different devices. That's just the reality.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Many things are difficult to use. So are you asking how much leeway?
I guess what I'm asking is how do we get ourselves in that position where they give us that leeway? Where they say, okay, this isn't working, and
okay, so this has to do with this part of the triangle that I've so quickly glossed over because I have nothing to say about it. And that's the desirability.
okay.
So something can be really useful, can even be usable, but if you don't care about using it, then it's going to be a failure of a product. So what you're asking here is, how do we make libraries desirable to use? If libraries were totally cool, hip, whatever, or just desirable, people will use it, even if it isn't as useful or usable. And that happens all the time in consumer electronics world, for sure. So library desirability, I have nothing to say about it. I don't know. How are we gonna do that?
That's the $1 million question.
I think so. I think there's responses have been going out to patrons on social software to make them aware of libraries, to kind of create some tech cachet. I think that might be part of it, for sure. And it's maybe a bit shallow about our physical buildings. If we have a really nice looking facility, maybe modern or whatever, that makes it desirable to use in a lot of cases. I think an example of that could be the Central Library for Seattle Public that I showed. I've never worked there. I don't know for sure that it's a difficult library space. I think it does some things well. I've been in there a lot. But just the mere fact that it's such an amazing building has made it desirable for people to use, and it's given the whole library system a whole new life. So desirability can help with a lot.
And I think libraries have a tendency to not ask their communities what they need. It's kind of like they just walk up to people and say, you need gym shoes. And they don't, what I'm saying? And the person's like, yeah, I'll run holes in mine. I'm like, you need gym shoes. Well, what about these your shoes? No, you need gym shoes. Because we don't want to look. We have gym shoes. That's all we have. And so it's like, here's gym shoes. And the person's like, I don't want that. And libraries, I work for now I work for Chicago. But you just don't, you don't have that autonomy to say, okay, my community wants this, and even though we have another library that's in the exact same city, their community wants something else. Stop trying to make me force my community to want what that community wants, and you don't even know if that's what that community wants. That's just what you gave. So it's just, we can't keep making assumptions about our communities, and then it's not working. It's not working. If people aren't coming to your doors, they're not coming to your doors for a reason. And it's not because you're giving them what they want. And we have to say, we're just not giving you what you want, They will, like she said, line up for a book, line up at a wine, seller for something that we call ours. And we have to analyze that and see why you're that.
Because we're not serving wine.
That's what I was just saying. It's the wine. I line up for the wine.
I just have a general question, maybe some of you have ideas. You know, I'm a reference librarian for Edwardsville Public, and we're talking about borrowing and helping people get what they need, and about the fact that a lot of people don't know our databases, et cetera. Well, we have a lot of students that come in and adults who use their own laptops. They come in for a school project, they're all sitting around. One of them finally asks us for help, and then when we help them magnificently, then we have a line, you know, all of a sudden the students all need the article. But here's my question. A lot of times we can email them an article, but does anyone have any luck with like wireless printing or printing stations? Because they inevitably have to come back to our desk or one of our computer labs to print. They can't print from their laptop. And so we have to bring back or use their flash drive and plug it into our machine and we print, blah, blah, blah. I mean, how can, yes.
I'm Sarah Calder, the Assistant Director of Design at the library, and we have set up the, print, it's from TBS, it's from PC, yeah, printer on. And it's remote printing, so they can print from home with their printer guys, but we use it for the wireless. So
it's just like a couple printers?
We have 2 print stations, one in adult services and one in youth, and they can send it over the wireless through our website. They, you know, it's an extra step, but they go through our website and they can send the print job and then pick it up.
Because that happens so often. People come in, yeah, they could email them the article, they can go home and print, but a lot of times the students want to print it right there while they're sitting with their friends and working on a project and they want to highlight it or whatever. And then the printing process.
And then that way it collects the money too, so you're not handing out free printouts of the.
Right.
Is that expensive setup?
I don't remember. We bundled it with our PC reservation, so.
So there's a kind of company name, product name.
Printer on. They have Business Solutions. It does a lot up in this area.
And they can download a little software for their laptops too, so it acts just like.
Okay, finally.
All right, I'm Sarah, I work here, so I think I might be my only academic librarian in the room.
No, Terry is too.
Oh, yeah, see, I'm Nebraska. So I guess one of the problems that we face here when it comes to talking to our community, finding out what our community needs is, we have 25% of our students online, not even in the state. We've only been a 4-year school since 1997, so now we have this freshman and sophomore, so no one seems to know what to do with them. Plus we have tons of transfers between the community. And then every time we try to reach out to them and, get their feedback and all these things, and it's working well, some faculty member somewhere will say, you need to go to the library and get this book, which we don't have. Or you need to go to the library and use JSTOR, which isn't the right database for them to use. And no matter how much we try to get to the students, every time I turn around, a faculty member is undermining it. It's just infuriating. Because then they get put in this weird, well, the librarian said to do it this way, but you're saying, I have to do it this way for my assignment. And that's where they get frustrated, because they'll be wandering the stacks for a book that their teacher told was up there, and it's not there, and then it's our fault, because it wasn't there.
So it sounds like faculty are also a user group that you can deal with.
One thing that helps us, which we're much smaller,
I am definitely, I think that.
We are much smaller, but one thing that helps us is that our faculty need us badly. Like, they can't do their jobs without us. The students can't do anything with us.
Do they know that?
Yes. We're a medical library, and so there's a lot of difference. Like, the nursing students have to come in. So when we say this isn't working, the faculty listen because they know they need us. So I don't know if that helps you out at all, but that helps us out greatly. Yeah.
Would they be willing to come in and do something like a lunch and learn? I do that with the faculty in my high school, where either I'll cater in a lunch or they can brown bag it, and then I showcase something like EasyBid or, one of the Gale databases. And they walk away goosed, and I didn't know that. Well, there you go.
The typical response we get to things like that is, we're too busy, because every department on this campus is is understaffed right now, so that almost everybody's teaching overload at this point. So
what about the library? Could you embed librarians in the classroom?
We do that sometimes with faculty, but we get a lot of, they only need this one database in my class, and I know how to use it well enough, I just teach it to them. And then you run into that whole, because I never want to ever say, well, let me teach you the right way, because there isn't really a right way.
But I think it's like this careful dance.
I think she should stay. Let me show you another way.
You've got some teachers that want to sit in the front of their own laptop and do their own things, and you've got others that really want to hold their hands and they think. And you have to kind of figure out, okay, where do I fit in that picture? Because if you really rock it out with one, let's say professor, he or she will go down home and say, she was amazing, you really use
They gotta build
And
relationships.
it kind of
They
like
gotta learn how to
word
build
of mouth.
relationships here.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
You gotta learn how to do it.
And my boss is in the room right now. I don't know if she
No,
wants in the room.
she
She goes, "Please." I think one of the other problems is she loves listening to the community. It only takes one suggestion in the suggestion box and saying that we're doing it. Like, and it should, and while that's fine, like, one person wanted lockers, we got lockers, they've been super popular, fantastic, but that's not always the case, and I don't know how to kind of like, no, well, let's take a couple steps back.
Yeah, so that's why having a plan or a whole program for having an expansive view of user research, a bigger picture, can be helpful and look for patterns for sure.
How do I tell my boss we should do that?
Suggestion box. Sorry.
So I tell them on campus, if they want something in the library, just put it somewhere.
As a library
Consider.
as a library director, when you put your suggestions in the suggestion box, type them.
Oh, absolutely.
I know your handwriting.
Still know it's mine.
You have to take 2 or 3 steps back, because I used to, when I was the director, I get a lot of complaints from some staff about certain kinds of things. And when you dig down into it, it's one library, it might have been delivered. So it might have been one library, somebody that does it over. Is this a prevalence of all faculty, or is this 3% of the faculty that are driving you crazy? And you think, okay, you really have to focus on that 97% that aren't driving you crazy. You know, I went to a workshop when I was a much younger librarian, and the thing that came from me was, we spend all our time worrying about the 20% and never taking care of the 80% that love us and really figuring out. So try, you know, I think it's natural for us to get really frustrated with the people that are just irritating the crap out of us, but we need to take a look at. And so I don't know if it's everybody, but sometimes we all have to take some internal and think, okay, so this is going to happen, and this is the way it is. Now let's move on to that 80% that's really doing the work for us. So that's just a suggestion, and think about it. You know, sometimes you just have to think about it.
And that's true with our users too. You know, we're always trying to get that group that never comes in. Oh, what about people that never?
Yeah, it could be okay to let those people drop off.
Yeah, see, I would go the other way on that. I think that's what librarians only focus on. I don't think librarians are really, I personally don't think we spend nearly enough time on our non-users. I just think we don't ask them. I really don't think we do. And I think they're more than, unfortunately, I think they're more than 20%.
Okay, a lot of things.
We switched our annual assessment tool a few years back to look at non-users and users instead of just users, because we used to just do it in the building to see, you know, those who come get to say, you know, or those who visit the website get to demand. But we switched it to the other group also, and clearly random samples, but a very large 2,000 or 3,000 sample, and the numbers didn't change.
I'm not surprised.
A lot of people are still satisfied even though they're not users, and they will say, no, I don't use this, but I'm satisfied with that. We're glad you're doing it.
Well, the other piece of this is that a couple of years ago, we did a community survey, and it's difficult to get non-users to respond. I mean, we had a really, really hard time. SIU Edwardsville actually did the survey, and they came back to us multiple times because it was really difficult to get people to even fill out the survey when they feel, exactly, you know, they don't have that investment necessarily to begin with.
I know librarians that stood outside of grocery stores.
Well, and actually, that ended up doing it, but interestingly enough, grocery stores are very worried about liability issues. And that, actually, it was a small local market basket that let us do it, but the bigger chain said no.
So people love libraries. They love libraries.
Really?
And you got a lot of fun with them.
No, as a library trustee, at our last community meeting for building expansion, that's the same takeaway that I received from our numerous community forums, was that there wasn't a dissatisfaction with the library per se. I mean, the money is separate, but there is there isn't an actual part of the design of libraries as being a historic element of the community that we can use to our advantage. We don't know how a lot of these different trends and technologies are going to ultimately affect us, and we might be something very different in 25 years. And as institutions that don't generate money from sales, it's kind of hard to drive that. I mean, some things you just kind of have to eat, like your faculty scenario. We have the same faculty scenarios, but I tell my staff, that's job security. I mean, part of your job is to advocate. You're going to have some faculty who are upset with certain things, but my comment for the reference desk is that when redesigning our library, sure, I put a reference desk in there, because that's what a lot of our non-users understand. And that's what the people who hold the purse strings to our library, who barely use it, they use it once or twice a year, but they control all of our money. If they don't see a reference desk or something else that they consider to be familiar, then they're going to ask a whole bunch of questions that I might not be prepared to answer. Or they might get a sales pitch from me for something that they just don't buy. So I keep a desk, and that's it. I mean, I don't even have to have it staffed. A lot of times I don't have it staffed. So we just have a sign that says, well, meet at night, or go here, or go there. But it's the staff point that is staffed the least. It's not like CERT. But it is part of the overall design, because when CERT gets really busy, at least in the public library world, I'm a Plainfield Public Library District, I'm thinking, well, how would our main floor be without the design of some sort of other service point? We have a welcome desk, a reference desk, and a CERT desk. But it's because our building is so tiny. So the CERT desk is always busy. You can't go to the CERT desk and ask a legitimate question. Or you can't even go to the CERT desk and ask where the bathroom is. There's so many people. So, like Jan said, I mean, the individual people who are in the community sort of dictate how the needs are there. You know, back to that user survey. The people who don't use the library are very important to listen to. And not necessarily from an anxiety, pressure, we need to provide something for them. I'm so glad that you mentioned we need to do less, because we do. I think we talk about all sorts of things. But in reality, there are certain things that we own that no one else wants to pick up. Sure, some folks have taken this, or they've taken that, or IT people have taken this, and Amazon has taken the book away, and so on and so forth. There are still some other things with instruction and direction and organization that other markets just, they haven't picked up, and they're still ours, and I guess they're kind of ours to lose, I suppose.
About that reference desk situation, you made a very good point. People admitted to is meet your clients where they're at, and that's a point well taken. My question is to you: at what point in that scenario does a librarian leave the building? And it's like you meet your clients where they're at. Well, my client's about 3 blocks down the street sometimes, and there's been discussion about who will send me there.
Yeah. So.
And what is that?
There's no way to answer that question without trying it. And so this is the visualization or prototype part of that cycle of design thinking. Don't all of a sudden decide that you or your librarians are going to go over there all the time. Try it out a few times and evaluate it and see if there's any good that comes from it. And if there is, then that might be something that you can implement on a permanent basis. But it's something that a library can easily try. So one of the things that I helped the DC Public Library with was this kind of portal or desktop or dashboard for neighborhood librarians. And they really liked it because they were able to take it out in the community and register people for library cards wherever they were with the 3G cellular connection. So that happened to work out really well. So that's something that they wanted. But we made an experiment, and it was good. So I'd say try it. Don't commit to it fully. But I think, yeah, getting out from the library is super good.
I have a question. I'm Alicia Hammond. I'm from the Schaumburg Library. We recently got a grant where part of it was that we got to hire a marketing firm to come in and do focus groups. And we paid these people $50 a piece, and basically what we found out is it was for non-users. We found out they love the library. They know everything. It's all great. They're still not going to use it. And so I'm just wondering, great grant money, Okay, but what sort of questions should you ask? I feel like it was kind of the wrong questions, or I'm not quite sure because we didn't get anything that we didn't know. People in my community love the library. They don't necessarily all use the library, but they love it. They love having it.
Yeah, right. So people were just kind of glad having.
And we'd just given them $50. Of course they love it.
Yeah, right. So it sounds like this was a typical focus group in that the interviewers, the people leading the focus group, asked direct questions about the library. In the user interviews that I did, and the user interviews that I do, I don't talk about the library at all. I talk about people, and I don't talk about their opinions about the library. I'll say, what's your typical day like? You know, when do you get up? What do you do with your kids? And it's that kind of real life behavior that will show the library there's an opportunity to insert themselves someplace. So there's almost no library talk at all. There's any.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Our school district most likely in the next school year is going to go to one-to-one computing. So we're going to purchase probably a little under 4,000 Chromebooks. So each student will have his or her own computer. And I think that's going to be a huge paradigm shift for the librarians and the libraries. So where do you, if I had to triage the situation, where would you begin?
Wow. With all the kids having computers.
In the classroom.
Well, what do you imagine the problems? That's
Well, right now it seems like the libraries, as many of you know, academic libraries, it's kind of the place where you go to use a computer, use a desktop. And that's not going to really happen anymore. If they can use their Chromebook in their room, in the classroom, why would you come down and see us and get our advice? We're also looking at Overdrive. How we're going to launch that in December of this year. We're trying to figure out our collection development as far as it goes. But you can't read Overdrive book on a Google Chromebook because it's essentially just the Google Chrome browser.
Yeah, right.
Just downloading it. So, yeah.
Well, so it sounds like there's hardware issues. It sounds like there's an issue of getting people in the library and students in the library.
Well, I guess I'm looking for a game plan of how to get the librarians out of the library. I kind of like your iPad idea where they're roaming. I kind of like this whole information literacy coach idea, or instructional coach, where they're going in the rooms, teaming up with the faculty to, enhance especially their Web 2.0 lessons using materials like Blogster and Logo, all that stuff. They come to us for that.
Yeah, so it seems like you need to assess or figure out what value the librarian's been adding to the information live to the students, and see if that can be replicated or if that can be expressed in a different way besides students coming into the library. So I guess getting that kernel of what value and what the students actually do in the library, and assessing from that perspective, that would be my initial.
I also think you have an opportunity. I think the opportunity is the district's going to come. And so you have an opportunity to insert yourself into that mix of what it is the librarians are going to do. So ask the faculty and teachers, how can we help you to implement this new tool and so that you can, so your ideas I think are great about being a partner, but I think you have an opportunity to say, okay, now what can we do, instead of saying, oh my gosh, this is gonna, which you're not doing.
No.
But I'm saying that this is just a perfect opportunity to say, it's a change, you're gonna face a lot of changes in your classroom, what can we do?
I think you're very, I think the faculty themselves, there's a lot of levels of tech savviness and building.
And so I think that's the opportunity.
So there's a lot of foundation on the other faculty part.
Help over the ends.
Did you, go pick first. Were you interested in design because of your natural interest? Or did you just feel this overwhelming need in the library world and you had to well, I gotta fix this?
Right. No, actually, I really got into the design stuff through looking at libraries using social software and just the whole phenomenon of, I guess, Web 2.0, you could say, or the rewrite web. It really fascinated me how everyday people could now become web publishers or share photos online, and just how easy all that stuff became. It just kind of sparked something in me, and people were doing that work because it was so easy to do on those websites, and that kind of that kind of interested me in usability in libraries. And so, like, the greatest lesson I think, for instance, from Facebook for libraries isn't necessarily libraries should be on Facebook, but how many people are using that site because it's desirable to use and easy to use, right? So it's that bigger picture issue for this website that kind of interested me. So, yeah, I've always been looking for design.
Well, this is probably being popular, but
All right.
I would like to see libraries start charging for something. Number one, to, you know, if you give something free, you give out, you give out Starbucks, cup coffee free and all this Starbucks. I'd like to see us charge for stuff. And I mean, just from watching our patrons, I think people make the assumption that our patrons only want free stuff. And that's not necessarily the case. I think they'll pay for a lot of things. I mean, I know college students would probably gladly give you $5 so that you don't have to, so they don't have to spend their time texting over your head while you're doing their research project. I mean, I think they would gladly pay for some of the things we did, or you know, if we can offer some things at a certain level. Like, I mean, I'm finding myself, you know, daily, you know, writing resumes for people. I'm like, first of all, I'm not even a resume writer, so I don't even know what you're gonna get out of this. You know what I'm saying? But you know, for someone to come in and say, I don't have any idea how to do a resume, then you're trying to help them, and they're like, well, can't you go with that? And once you put that there, I'm like, if you do all that, why you send it on to me? You know, you do it. But I think they would. I mean, I think they would be willing to pay. You know, give them a level of something free. You know, we have access to these computers and these nice resume books for free. But if you want this, we can do this for $10 and we can do this for $15, and you can come back for $200. You know, I mean, I think.
Well, and the Park District example.
Yeah.
Park District gives these literacy classes. They charge $150, and people sign up left and right. And I'm like, oh, I know Saturday morning Tyler's on, come in. You know, just,
That is that I had that call. That's seen, I mean, I'm on your college, but what do you have because I go, the WFU with her. And it's like, oh, really? I used to be $150 for the Park District, and all I do is play games.
Yeah.
And I want that.
So there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of issues here.
That would help with that.
The issues are providing stuff to everyone, which is a core thing for libraries, equal access to everyone. There's an issue of perceived value. You know, if something's free, people maybe don't want it because it's not worth anything. But even if it's $2, maybe they're a little bit committed or more interested, which is what you were saying. And then you raise this issue of like having a freemium model, right, where there's free stuff and there's premium services. I think libraries will have a very hard time implementing something like that because of information access issues. And we want to provide everything rather than working on the same playing field. And is it not fair, right? People will say
it's fair for you. But I mean, it's like, I don't know, I mean, I just feel like we're spinning our wheels trying to meet this lowest common denominator. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, because we are free, people see no value in what we do. They see no value in our time. They see no value in our buildings, you know. So if we could, I don't know.
This could be part of the desirability aspect of it.
I was just, I know I'm on the district level university. I just wanted to know, what do you want to do with the money? Why would you want to deal with the money?
Oh, I like to use it to keep my job. But I mean, if we, obviously taxes aren't paying for what we want to do everything. I mean, we're kind of like Walgreens. You know, we started off as a drugstore. Now we got tennis balls, we got ink cartridges. We got, you know what I'm saying? We're doing graphic design. I mean, we're doing all of this stuff, and we're stretching ourselves so thin. And then libraries with more money, they'll say, we do this. You know, and then people, rush in. I mean, there are some libraries that have resume writers sitting right in there to do that. I don't really think that should be any library's core, that should be no free core service, because to me free is what you offer is your core service. Should we have a relationship with a resume writer? Someone can come in there and maybe pay them to do it, sure, but we I can't keep giving my expertise unless, I mean, my expertise outside of librarianship.
Just real quick, it was interesting in the city hearings, I'm Amber Creator, Chicago Public Library. The city hearings, one of the aldermen actually came up with a study from Indiana where they took down all the reference questions and they put a price tag on it. So he was able to quote, how much does it cost for someone to ask any reference question? For example, in Indiana, it's $10 a reference question, is what the money is. So, but he was able to actually give, for aldermen, for example, to give them an idea of how much it costs for a library to actually run. It's not just staff, it's not just our time, it's, you know, so to put a value on it, because that's sometimes what all people understand, is that, you know, is the money aspect.
And I think it's a slippery slope. And I think it's great to charge, but I don't have libraries know squat about doing it. I mean, Terry, I think, may know some things about doing it, but I don't know much about doing it.
Yeah,
And I just think it's a slippery slope, and mostly I think what you're gonna have, and what I heard Aaron say, and maybe I'm wrong, is what is our core service? The less is less. Is our core service access, or whatever it is, or is our core service now resume? Now, I don't know, I think we have to redefine what core service is before we can go down that slope.
We actually, something similar we started, we noticed that even though we staff reference desks 9 hours a day on most days, that it's terribly slow for lots of reasons. But the minute we started doing these things where for 2 hours on Wednesday night, CTL, Center for Teaching and Learning, started here in the library and said, out in the library for 2.5 hours, it is packed. There's always been a librarian sitting for that time period at the reference desk. Always. The minute we make it this confined thing, and that it's there, that you only come during this time, and it's, you know, I can go in at this time and do it, it's crazy busy. And we've started seeing that in other things. So starting spring, there will be no reference desk. It's gone. We get rid of it. And we will have a research consultation center. And throughout the day, you can make an appointment, and then there'll be bits and pieces here where, you know, on Wednesday nights from 6 to 8:30, you can meet with both the TTL and reference librarian. Maybe on Monday afternoons, we will look at the stats to see if the hours, you know, see what the hours need to be for these, you know, mini little, you know, kind of things. And the weirdest thing is it's just an illusion where we're now really, you know, we're offering this amazing service. We've been offering this entire time, but we could find it, and it's like, bam.
Yes.
So that's what we're doing.
Different brand.
What if I just take out a bill? They don't have to pay it. But this is what I did for you the last time. This is what it
The one thing I'd like to contribute is that we're socialists. We are. We redistribute resources. And the sales paradigm is done a lot better by Walgreens and Walmart and so on and so forth. And what makes me nervous when people talk about charging is that, not that, well, all the things that Dan said, it's a slippery slope, and that we might not be able to do it well. We can't say that we're socialists, even though I do at work. I will come into a meeting and put marks up on the wall and say, my job is to take your money and redistribute it. And generally, college faculty won't look at me like I'm a weirdo, because they're college faculty, especially in the College of Arts and Sciences. But that is something that we do. And as the world has shifted, what has happened to some of them? It has shrunk. I will tell students, think twice before going to library school. Seriously. Because their careers aren't there. I mean, it's not that we should necessarily think about the design of our profession, but maybe the design of the structured society first, and then where we fit within it. Because the internet has taken a lot of what we've done and has done the exact same thing. It's aggregated resources together and redistributed them and changed the accession method. And we've seen attrition because of it. So people have been let go. There are plenty of people who have lost their jobs, and those jobs have not come back. That still doesn't mean that there aren't services for us to provide. But I'm really worried about the commercialization of libraries, because there's nothing left after that. Where else are resources being distributed in a democratic sense? Governmental organizations that are all under attack. But I don't think we have to, I don't think it's realistic to think about charging. That we're not going to make enough money to be sustainable on our own. So it's just not a realistic conversation.
I've never seen a library where, you know, charging for reference work. But I worked in a library where they charge for some of the programs. I mean, up to $60, $70, $80 for a program, and they would fill up, and I mean, people be calling, how can I give you more of these $80? And I mean, and that worked on, they had free programming, you know, I mean, for example, they may have did an entire bus tour of Chicago, that cost $60. Or for free, you came in, you heard John talk about his tour of Chicago and showed you his nice picture. I mean, so, I mean, but they paid for those programs, and they were filled every month, all the time, and people calling and saying, when are you gonna do it again? When are you gonna do it again? When are you gonna do it again?
And what's your revenue from that versus your revenue from taxes?
Even if it's not revenue, it's money that we don't have to spend out of our revenue. You know, so I mean,
we do the same thing. We run a senior program. We make about $1,000 a year. We charge for the tours that we give and so on and so forth. But it's not part of the design of the library. It's a friend raising activity. It's not a fundraising activity. It's not significant to really be a paradigm shift to this is something that's going to save jobs and save our industry and save what we do. It's just not enough. I mean, I think it's sort of shameful that the Park District charges so much for programs because they're doing the same thing that we're doing as public
and they're not providing the quality.
Yeah, they're not well.
Did you have something?
I was just gonna say, in reference to what you just said, I think there's a difference between charging for a program where somebody's renting a bus and you're charging for those costs, and charging for a service that essentially you're receiving a salary to be there at the reference desk for one and around the stacks or whatever. And so then if you're helping somebody do a resume and the library charges $20 for it, but there's somebody else who really just wants help getting information for a term paper, and you're busy getting the $20 helping the resume, you know, what message does that send? And in our community, anyway, I would say we're at about 25,000. There would be a huge backlash probably for the little money you would get, because people's mindset is we are already paying taxes. You know, even if I don't use the library, I live in the city limits and I'm paying taxes, and now you're going to charge me X amount of dollars for something that they associate as a service you should be providing. And that to me is different than a program where you're taking people around on a bus or providing them with hundreds of dollars of supplies to build something or whatever. So I was going to say, I think you run the risk of a substantial backlash.
I'm just going to say, what is the proper way that we should do and go at advocacy and making sure?
So what is really nice is that I'm looking at, you know, we have the union has up a website, and people can post their stories about what the library does for them. And right now there's about 2,000 people who have posted so far in like 4 days about what the library is doing for them and why the city needs to keep the library. So it's good, once you do provide a service and your patient, you have your patron speak for you. I think it's the strongest story, because I'm a city worker, I live in the city. I mean, I can tell my story as a patron, but not as a city worker.
So, we're pretty much out of time, but I think
yes,
it's a fine note to wrap up on. As far as advocacy goes, I really think the best advocacy is not shouting, but figuring out how to solve people's problems. And if we're important to them in that way, then they'll fund us, and that's what we want through advocacy. So we didn't get to talk about websites at all, but maybe next time. Thanks a lot for this conversation. I learned a lot.
It's good.
Great, so.
Thank you.